Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in today's session. I can see there's a lot of people still popping in, and our session is scheduled to begin at 5:30 this evening. So we'll just wait for a few more people to join, and we'll get our panel started. All right, since we already have questions popping in, I'll start with the introductions for our very elite panel that we have here today. Today, we're joined by our registered migration agent, Mr. Parth Patel. He's one of the most decorated migration agents at Aussizz Group Melbourne. And Parth is especially an expert in ICT occupations, ANSCO group codes and tasks for ICT job roles, occupation ceilings, and state nomination requirements for various ICT occupations. He has actually shaped the lives of thousands of migrants in settling down in Australia permanently. So he's going to be answering your questions from the migration point of view today. Our next panelist is Ms. Tiani Chan, who's the Director of International Recruitment in NSW, which is our in our Sydney office at Aussizz Group. Tiani comes with a wealth of experience in the international education sector. She has played key roles in student services and administering courses to international students in the US as well as Australia. And she's an expert in understanding student aspirations and aligning their interest with the right course choice. And Tiani has decades of experience in shaping successful student careers. So she's going to be able to provide you guidance from the education point of view. Lastly, but not the least, we're joined by Ms. Saru Jindal, who is a QEAC certified senior course advisor with over 7 years of specialist experience in the international education sector. One of the most decorated education managers at Aussizz Group, Ms. Saru comes with a wealth of knowledge and information when it comes to regional courses and scholarships. With her innate skill and specialist knowledge, Ms. Saru has helped countless international students in achieving their study goals in Australia. So, guys, please start shooting your questions at our panelists. And don't worry, if you're not able to have your questions answered today, we have one more Q&A session at 5:30 tomorrow. Today was just day one of this amazing conclave. And even if you don't have your questions answered by tomorrow, we have all your details. Our counselors will get in touch with you personally. So don't stress. We'll make sure everything about your queries are all taken care of. So let's get into the session and let's get the questions rolling. So we have Megha, who is pursuing a Master's of Environmental Management from University of Queensland through School of Science. There's also some technical coursework included in her studies. She's just left with 1 semester to graduate. What are the career options for her to get her PR in Australia?
Look, in order to advise career options as such, I will also have to find out what she has studied in her undergrad degree, so that I can advise on that grounds first. Because masters, it's environmental management, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it depends, because environmental has multiple options, career options or the occupation options. There are some occupations relevant to environmental engineer, so it's engineering side. So a lot of students have done bachelor's of engineering probably, or it can also have options towards some specific environmental consultant, like relevant to science background. So environmental consultant is another occupation, but then both of these occupation has different pathways. So I will have to find out actually what undergrad degree she has. But then if like just telling you overall idea, if it is engineering qualification, engineering degree, if she has done in undergrad degree, then she will have much more better options, because engineers are in high demand in Australia. And if you look at if she is studying in Queensland generally says if you have experience in the relevant occupation in Queensland for 6 months, or even a job offer. Earlier they were saying that with a job offer also they can sponsor. Recently they were asking for 6 months of experience, but in July Queensland may announce updated requirements, so probably she'll have to wait and see. But engineering skills assessment, because for skilled visas she will require a skills assessment. It's bit easier to get a skills assessment if it is engineering occupation. If she is saying that if she has done environmental science related study, then she will be probably looking at environmental consultant or the scientist related occupations. But then she will be required to prove that she has at least 1 year of relevant experience in order to get a skills assessment, because these occupations will be assessed by assessing authority called VETASIS. and they ask for at least 1 year of experience post qualification. So you'll have to see whether you have experience back in whatever country or wherever you have studied the bachelor's degree, or if you get a job over here, 1 year you will have to work, and then you look at options. If you think that getting a job will be much more difficult, and if you don't have engineering study as well, then probably you might have to look at studying some other course which can probably help you in permanent residency pathways.
Thank you so much for that detailed insight, Parth. Our next question is from Atia Salim. She has done MBA Health Services Management from Brisbane. She wants to know, if you go to South Australia and get 6 months experience, will she be eligible for permanent residency, or does she have to complete 3 years of job experience for skill assessment? And for what professions can she opt for while showing her experience?
Okay, so if she has studied health management related courses, again, we have to look at what she has studied in her undergrad, because so if you are asking any question, I'll recommend that if you provide all of your qualification details, so based on all of that occupation, all of that studies, we can advise you which would be a better option. But health management, if you look at, because it can be like undergrad, you might have studied any of the health related occupation. A lot of people study dentistry back home, they study nursing back home, or any doctor related studies you do, and then you do masters of public health, so background study is much more important, like the bachelor's degree is much more important to know. Based on that, we can provide you a better option. But based on masters of public health, people generally look at health promotional officer, occupational or primary health and organization manager, or medical administrator, that kind of occupations you are looking at. The problem with these occupations is all these occupations are in short term, low demand in Australia. Secondly, for all these occupations, the skills assessment is again done by the authority called VETASYS, and they always ask for 1 year of experience in that occupation. Now, getting a job in this occupation is a bit tricky. It's much more difficult, because most of these kind of organizations, businesses look for permanent residency in order to hire you, in order to give you a job, So because it is much more higher level position. So most of the time people, if they have experience back home because they got qualification back home, and then they work for a few years, probably as a manager, something like that, in any clinic as such, any health service providers, then probably they can get a skills assessment and they look at permanent residency options through that. Otherwise, when you are saying that what if I go to South Australia and work for 6 months, can I qualify? The problem is, with 6 months, probably South Australia might have a requirement that if you work for 6 months, then we can sponsor you. But apart from that, there is another requirement that you have to get a skills assessment, and for that you have to have 1 year of experience. So if you are saying that what if I will work for 1 year in South Australia, yes, then you can qualify for skills assessment. And because you also met 6 months of a requirement for South Australia, you can qualify for both of the requirements, and hence they can probably sponsor you. But in short, skills assessment is a much more it's a mandatory requirement which you'll have to work on. If you cannot get experience in that occupation, then pretty much wherever you go, whichever state you ask for, they will not sponsor you.
Alrighty, moving on to our next question. Lovepreet Kaur is asking, I'm doing my Master of Business Information System. Can she get a skill assessment in web developer occupations?
Getting skills assessment, we were having a session in the morning. So what depends is how many subjects you have studied relevant to web designing. If you have studied, if you are looking at a master's degree, ACS expect that you have studied approximately 30%, 33% of content relevant to programming, web developing. If you have studied that many subjects, you may be able to get a skills assessment. So as per the ACS requirements, they says that if it is a master's degree, at least 50% of content should be relevant to IT. And out of that 50%, two-third component, that is approximately altogether 33%, if you have studied relevant to web designing, it can have subjects relevant to programming, web designing, web technologies, anything relevant to web that can be considered as relevant subjects. So that is what you'll have to prove. If you have studied that many subjects, probably you can get a skills assessment. But without looking at subjects, we cannot advise you. But if you decide you wanted to process application through us, we will provide a detailed, we will go through the mark sheet and accordingly we'll advise you.
All right. Our next question is actually about education. There's a person who wants to inquire about the graduate diploma in early childhood education, which is a good university or an institution, and what is the fee structure like?
May I answer that today?
Yep, absolutely.
Graduate Diploma of Early Childhood. If you're looking for options in Melbourne, then this program is available with Victoria University and RMIT. But then looking at the current environment where students are looking to move regional, this course is actually available with Southern Cross University as well in their Gold Coast campus, and they have a July intake. And for this particular course, they are offering a scholarship of $5,000. So it's a 1 year program with them, and they're offering a scholarship of $5,000 for the upcoming July intake. Because for this particular program, for in order for you to get your skill assessment, you need to make sure that the program has a certain number of hours of placements included, and there are very few universities who have that. So I would say Victoria University, RMIT, and if you're looking to study regional, then it is Southern Cross University in Gold Coast.
Okay. Our next question is from Tariq. He has a positive skill assessment as a welfare worker, and he's based in Sydney at the moment. Can you advise him on what are the visas that are available for him? His background is in Master of Social Work from ACU.
So he is working as a welfare worker, right? Or he got a skills assessment under that occupation.
He has a positive skill assessment as a welfare worker, and he's
Okay.
based in Sydney. I'm not sure. He hasn't specified if he's working.
Okay, so if you are based in New South Wales requirements are that your occupation must be listed under their occupation list. So you might be knowing that New South Wales publish their occupation list every year in July. So probably in this next month, July, they will announce the new updated occupation list. For now, to what I remember, welfare worker is not part of the current occupation list, but then the current program is anyway closed pretty much because it's like end of year. Tomorrow it's last day for this year. So July they will update the occupation list, and they says that if your occupation is on that list, if you are living in New South Wales, which you are already living there, and if you have scored higher points in the point tested metric system, so if you have higher points, then New South Wales can invite you. For that you'll have to lodge expression of interest. So you'll submit your expression of interest and then see whether New South Wales has your occupation on that list. If it is available, you can wait and try and move. If you don't have much more higher points, you try for more points. If you have higher points, then they will generally select you. Higher points generally means they start inviting people with 85 points, 85 points by yourself plus 5 points from the state governments, altogether 90 points if you have. Then consider you will have higher chances, or more than that if you have, then pretty much more easier for you to get state nomination. The only concern is your occupation must be on their list. That's the first thing. Secondly, for New South Wales, if you look at welfare worker, you will see this occupation under the regional occupation list. So most of the time, New South Wales sponsor welfare worker under the 491 visa category, which is like longer pathway to permanent residency. But in that case, generally this occupation you will find on their occupation list. And for that, generally New South Wales says that you are required to be working and living in regional New South Wales in the relevant occupation for a few months. Minimum requirement is 3 months, and they can ask for even 1 year of experience. But I would recommend that if you work in regional area, stay in regional area, you can possibly qualify for both of the program 190 and 491. If 190 they don't add this occupation on the list, if nothing works, at least you will have option of 491. But if 190 option is also available, you can apply for 190 and 491 state nomination both at a time as well. Whichever works for you, good for you, something like that. So that's about New South Wales. In case in July, if you see that this occupation is not added on the occupation list, then you try to get a skills assessment under social worker, because that could be another option as well for you. If not, if even social worker is not part of that list, then you'll have to look at some other state which sponsors social workers or welfare workers. But most of the time I have seen, if 190 occupation list does not have these occupations, at least 491 you will see these occupations. And because community service also considered one of the critical role for now, so there are very good chances that New South Wales will add this both of this occupation onto that list as well. But we'll have to wait and see the updated list for the July.
All right. Cynthia wants to know, she has a skill assessment as a program or project administrator. Which is the best regional area for her to move to at this point?
Look, it actually depends on whether you are working in that particular state, wherever you are living, whether you are able to find or secure a job in that occupation. If you think, or if you say that I'm not able to find job in my relevant occupation, then you better target either regional South Australia, because they says that if you stay and work for 1 year in a regional South Australia, that is outside of Adelaide, then they says we can sponsor you for the 491 state nomination, like the 491 visa, which is pathway to PR. Second state could be Canberra, because they says that if you work in any occupation in our state and if you score higher points as per our metric system, then we can select you. So Canberra could be another option. Same with Tasmania. If you look at Tasmania, says if you work for 6 months full time in any occupation, some jobs they don't accept, such as Uber, taxi driving, cleaning, security, petrol station jobs, or retail store jobs, fast food restaurants. They don't consider that kind of job. But other than that, any other occupation you work there for 6 months full time, then they can sponsor you for the 491. So if you go there in regional South Australia, Tasmania, or Canberra, they can sponsor you with even irrelevant job. If you are saying I can get a relevant job, then Victoria sponsor people with relevant job. New South Wales also sponsor people with relevant job. Queensland also sponsor people with relevant job. So if you are getting job in relevant occupation, then Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales can also sponsor you. But with relevant job, even the other three states, South Australia, Canberra, Tasmania, they will offer you sponsorship as well, because they sponsor with even irrelevant jobs. So if you are getting job in the same field, it will be much more easier for you. So this way you can target, but it depends on what you have or what you expect relevant to your occupation. If you are thinking you can get a job, or if you already have a job, or someone is saying we can offer you a job if you come to our state, then you can target that state accordingly.
Alrighty. Ruthdeep Kaur wants to know, she's doing her PhD. She's in her first year in IT in regional Victoria, and she's working as a part-time sessional tutor at Federation University since February 2021. She currently has 85 points as a telecommunications engineer. So what are the quick ways for her to get a PR under the Global Talent Visa program?
Look, if you're looking at a global talent program, then you will have to complete PhD degree, or if you are near to completion of your PhD, then you can look at this program. Otherwise, if you say that you have 85 points, or if you have achieved a higher score in your master's or bachelor's, that itself does not suffice the requirement for the global talent independent program. You also have to prove that you have a specific talent which not every other people have. So it's like you are kind of a top talented person in probably Australia or in any other country. You got some awards, achievements, membership registrations. You presented big events as such, or you have some innovative ideas as such, or you have a startup business where you have employed local people as such. So they look at lot of factors. But then before completion of PhD, I don't know about other recognitions which I have talked about, your skills as such. So I don't know about that. But then just based on your qualification, based on your points, if you're saying, then I don't think that is going to work for you, because as you also understand that there are a lot of students who have bachelor's, master's degree, 85, 90 points as such, and there is no possibility department can give PR to everyone as such, because they also have that things. So you have to prove that you are top talented individual as such, then department can consider your application. Generally they says if you have done PhD and you have done some multiple public publications, research as such, then they can probably consider you as a qualified individual. That is about the global talent program. Second option you can have is if you study a PhD degree in Victoria. Victoria says as long as you have a skills assessment in any one of the occupation, that is you are saying you have skills assessment under telecom engineer, they says that if you have studied PhD in Victoria, we will sponsor you without any higher requirements. You just have to score 60 points, which is the minimum requirements from your side. 5 points state will offer you, so altogether 65. Minimum 6 each you have to score in English. And Victoria says if you have done PhD, we will sponsor you. So if global talent even does not work after you finish your PhD, you will still have option of Victoria State sponsorship under 190 visa program. And if you are saying I wanted to do something before I even complete my PhD, you can look at option called 491 state nomination, or even under telecom. If you get a job over here in telecom, you may meet the requirements for the Victoria state nomination. So Victoria, for 190 state nomination, they says you work for some for a few months. For example, for now they are asking for 6 months of work in the relevant occupation, then they can offer you 190 state nomination. Or they says if you work for 3 months in regional Victoria in the relevant occupation, they can possibly offer you 491 state nomination. So before PhD, if you work for 3 months, 6 months as such, you may qualify for 491 or 190 state nomination. If these things does not work, you wait for 3 years, complete your PhD, whatever you are, whenever you are finishing PhD. At that time, you can look at either 190 state nomination program, or you can look at Global Talent Independent program.
Okay, Alpesh wants to know, he's a chemical engineer having 5 years of experience in India in research and manufacturing sector. He's currently 33 years old, attaining maximum points to 75. His wife has done MBA in finance with 4 years experience. Which pathway would be best suited for him? Is it good judgment for him to pursue a PhD at this time?
Look, if you are saying that you cannot score high points, then you are not considering the skilled, like the point tested visas, unless you are targeting the state governments. Like, because state governments, they can sponsor you with even lesser points, which can be even 50 points. If you have, they can still nominate you for the 491 program, because the state government gives you 15 points under the 491, making you altogether 65, which is the minimum requirement. Same way for 190 state sponsored visa, most of the states, they don't ask for high points. The thing what they ask for is generally the experience in that state, or probably studying in that state, and they can still nominate you, they can still sponsor you. So points does not matter if it is state sponsored visa you're looking at. For state sponsored visa, most of the state governments either ask you to study in their state, or they ask you to work in that state. Some states sponsor people with even irrelevant job, as we have recently talked about Tasmania, Canberra, and regional South Australia. If you are getting job in the relevant field, then other than Western Australia, you can target any other state. Other than Western Australia, it's because Western Australia says they want 2 years of study in Western Australia, then only they can sponsor you. So if you don't have study, if you haven't studied in Western Australia for 2 years, they cannot sponsor you. So other than Western Australia, wherever you get job in the relevant field, you can target that state for state sponsorship. That is one option. Second option is, if you are getting a job in any other state, you can also request your employer to sponsor you, because for employer sponsored visa, you need at least 2 years of experience if you're looking at a temporary employer sponsored visa, which can lead to permanent residency. Or if your employer is happy to sponsor you under straight away permanent residency, you require 3 years of full-time experience. You are saying you have 5 years of experience, so you qualify for even straight away permanent residency, as long as your employer is happy to sponsor you. So I would say, if you are finding an employer, better first thing for you is to find employment in your relevant occupation in any state. If See if that employer is happy to sponsor you. If it is, fine. If it is not, then you will have to see whatever state you are working in, whether that state offer you state nomination. If that is working out for you, it's fine. Even if that is not working out, then you are probably targeting the state nomination through probably studying there or working in any occupation, and the state government can still offer you the state nomination. Same thing goes with your partner. Problem with your partner skills is that that kind of occupations relevant to finance managers management side, most of the employer sponsored visa option, if you look at, you don't get permanent residency straight away. And if you are looking at the other options like state sponsored visa, most of the states, they don't easily sponsor people under this kind of occupations, unless you target again Tasmania, Canberra, or South Australia as such. So if you are looking at any option, I would say finding a job will be your first target. If you get a job, you can either look at state sponsorship in that state or the employer sponsored visa. If that does not work, then moving to Canberra, Tasmania, or South Australia, working in any field. Or there are some other states which says if you study for some time, 1 year, 2 year, like New South Wales, for example, in regional area, if you study in New South Wales for 2 years, they says we can also nominate you for 491 program. So you can also look at something like that.
All right. Thank you, Parth. Everyone's really appreciating the detailed responses you're giving them because it's giving them a lot of insight about their cases. So thank you so much for that. I know everyone's been messaging to answer your questions as well. Don't worry. Like I mentioned, we won't miss out on any of your questions. We'll make sure every query of yours is looked after. Our next question is actually from Ashil, who has done a Bachelor of Accounting, and he has the most minimum points right now. So he's interested in studying a Bachelor of Nursing graduate entry. So can we get a little bit of insights from the education point of view, please?
I'll just like to say that for Bachelors of Nursing graduate entry, First thing is you can be from any background. Now for graduate entry, of course, the first thing is you need a diploma of nursing qualification. So if you have done a diploma of nursing, then you can study the graduate entry, which is the 2 years bachelor's of nursing. Now this program currently is available with again Southern Cross University right now for their July campus, for their Gold Coast campus July intake, and they are offering a scholarship of $5,000. And also similar course options are available in Western Australia as well. Unfortunately, the course option in Victoria, right now are not available. So if you are for graduate entry especially, and plus for Bachelors of Nursing, overall there are no intakes available in Victoria right now. But then the Southern Cross University option in Gold Coast is a pretty good option right now. And also there are other universities, but then the intakes have already closed. Say for example, CSU Regional or University of Sunshine Coast, for the graduate entry, there are no more intakes available for this year. So the only next available intake is February 2022, which is with University of Sunshine Coast as well as CSU Regional.
I just want to say, like to add that in Adelaide, Torrance University will have the Bachelor of Nursing, but not for this year, probably next year intakes. For their second year entry, normally it's a February intake and a September intake. February is closed at the moment, so the next available for the second year of nursing will most likely be a September 2022.
Thank you so much, Tiani and Saru, for your insights on this. People want to know, in general, in regional areas, what are the courses that are currently popular, and what are the states that that are likely to include these popular courses in their 190 and 491 programs? Because I know we wouldn't know much until July, but as per the existing trends and projections, what do you think is most likely to prosper in terms of education?
So for education aspect, Riddhi, we had a session in the morning regarding to regional courses and the scholarships available. In this which we discussed, the most popular course choice right now is nursing. Whether it gets to bachelor's of nursing or master's of nursing, or even students are going for diploma of nursing in regional areas. And apart from that, the other popular courses are occupational therapy, social work. Teaching is again one of the most popular courses. But apart from that, community services, diploma of community services is quite popular in Tasmania. And also trade courses, are popular throughout. So earlier there were no trade course options available in regional areas. I would say very fewer options, but now many providers have opened up their campuses in regional areas, be it any state, be it Victoria, New South Wales regional, or in Tasmania or Canberra as well. And a lot of trade options are available, like painting, carpentry, commercial cookery, automotive. So all these courses are available in the regional areas. Now, I would like to request Parth to further say that which course choice the students should go for in regional areas.
Yeah, sure. Look, generally what happens when any student, when they are generally asking a question that which course I should look at, most of the time you are required to look at the current occupation list. If it is you are looking at a medium to long-term skill set strategic list, that is better because that occupation department is saying that that is in high demand, it's in medium to long-term demand. So probably you know that okay, this occupation is going to remain in the demand for long time. So you are looking at occupations mainly in MLT-SSL list. That's the first thing you should look at. Second thing, what you should look at is MLT-SSL list has occupations which are in high demand in Australia, but department also states what are their requirements, how many places are required for that particular occupation, which is known as occupation ceiling. So if you search for occupation ceiling, you will know that how many positions, how many places department is looking into. So based on that, you also find out that what's the actual demand. Thirdly, you see that okay, how many people are applying or studying this kind of courses, so that you will know what is the demand and what is the supply. It happens a lot of time that demand is much more higher, but even the supply is much more higher. Just an example, accounting occupation is an MLT-SSL list, high demand list. Demand is also high, but then supply is also much more higher, and that's where still you have to compete with a lot of other students. So then it will be a bit difficult. So you have to look at the demand, you have to look at supply. If demand is lesser but supply is also much more lesser, then still it will be a bit easier. That's the first thing you should look at. Secondly, when you are saying which occupation state government can also sponsor easily, in that case you also have to see whether you will be able to get a skills assessment easily with that kind of courses, because a lot of time it happens that state governments, for an example, they says we have a high shortage of um, for example, a promotional officer, health promotional officer. But then in order to get a skills assessment, you require 1 year of experience post qualification, as we were talking about earlier. So if you cannot have if you don't have that 1 year of experience, you cannot get a skills assessment, and that means you cannot apply, even apply to the state government. So getting a skills assessment or meeting the requirements for the skills assessment is also very important when you are deciding the course. Now, looking at all these 3 4 factors, I will if you're looking at something which is at a higher level courses, then you can look at studying a masters of teaching, as sir was advising, because masters of teaching, that's a 2 years course, and you just have to score English, higher score in English, or if you have studied 4 years in specific countries like Australia, then also you can get you can get exemption for the English requirement. So you are eligible for skills assessment easily. That is much more higher in demand, and not many people are doing that kind of courses, so it will be a bit easier. So teaching, same way, social work is also in high demand. It's easy to get a skills assessment, just English and the course you have to complete. Apart from that, nursing is also a very popular course. Jobs you can easily find in the market, and even the state nomination options, if you look at, it's much more easier. Even you can apply for permanent residency by yourself. These are the higher level courses where the demand is higher and supply is also lesser. Comparatively, as per the demand, it's lesser. You can also look at IT courses, but for IT courses, not every state sponsor people easily, because there are a lot of IT graduates or a lot of people have experience in IT occupation, and that's where competition is also much more higher. Getting a skills assessment in IT is easier compared to any other occupation, just completing probably a professional year program, or if you have a few years of experience, you can get a skills assessment. That are higher level courses. There are other courses as well, like depends on what's your background. If you have some science related background, you can also look at medical laboratory scientist related occupation, which is like masters of medical laboratory science, something like that. There are some courses which are approved by the relevant skills assessment authority. So if you study from that universities, you are straight away eligible for skills assessment. Like quantity surveyor, that's the occupation. For that, if you have done masters of construction management, project management, something like that, your course, if it is approved by the relevant skills assessment authority, AIQS, you are straight away eligible for the skills assessment. Any engineering courses, higher in demand, very easy to get a skills assessment. So all these occupations are higher level occupations. If you're looking at something at a lower level, you are probably looking at diploma of nursing, which is very popular again. Just have to complete 1.5 to 2 years of study in diploma of nursing, scoring 7 each in English. You can get a registration, skills assessment, you get job also very easily. Most of the small states easily sponsor enrolled nurses. Even the big states like Victoria or New South Wales, they also sponsor enrolled nurses, but only in regional area. They don't generally sponsor easily under 190 program. So diploma of nursing is one option. Apart from that, you can also look at diploma of community service. For that also, you just have to study approved course and work for, you don't have to even work for longer period. I think 3 months is the minimum requirement. For that also, you can get some exemption, and scoring 7 each in English, you are eligible for the skills assessment. Or if your course, because most of the courses I have seen, which are approved by the relevant skills assessment authority, requires, they says that only domestic students can do that courses. So if you don't have access to that approved courses, you can still do courses which are not approved by the skills assessment authority, but the difference is you will need 1 year of experience. But I have seen a lot of people, when they start studying this kind of courses, they start working in aged care, and then slowly, because it's still somehow relevant, then later on you can get promoted, or you get this kind of jobs in community service very easily. So you can get a skills assessment as well that way. So community service, apart from that, lot of people do trade courses. Problem with trade course is, after you complete the trade course, you require 1 year of full-time experience. So as long as you have full-time, because it requires full-time experience, that means you will need a full-time work rights visa. If you don't have that, you cannot look at trade courses. So most of the time people, we have seen, is on their temporary visa, 485 visa, they do that kind of courses because they will have 2 years of visa. So 1 year they take to complete the course, and another 1 year to get a 1 year of experience to get a skills assessment. We have also seen a lot of people, to save the time, they do a concurrent study. So for example, they will do master's degree, along with that they will do a trade course, so that in that temporary visa, 2 years visa, they can complete 1 year of experience. They will be still left with 1 more year to work on their permanent residency options. So trade is another option. Another popular course or the courses you look at is Advanced Diploma of Engineering, which can be in civil, electrical, and telecom that are in much more higher demand. You just have to complete 2 years of course in these occupations, and you are straight away eligible for the skills assessment. So very easy to get a skills assessment, not even higher English skills. So people who says we cannot score higher in English, not even 7 each. So with 6 each, you can get a skills assessment in this occupation 2 years course. Lot of states, if you study these 2 years, for an example, Tasmania, to what I remember, they have advanced diploma of electrical engineering. Tasmania says if you study 2 years in our state, we can possibly offer you 190 state nomination, directly permanent residency sponsorship. So if you study this advanced diploma of electrical engineering, just an example, they can probably offer you 190 state nomination because you will have skills assessment as well. Same way with South Australia, they also offer, I think, telecommunication courses. Same way Northern Territory offer this kind of courses. Good thing is these courses are in high demand. That means you can also get temporary visa, and you have option of getting sponsorship also easily. So telecom or electrical or civil is in high demand. You can also look at mechanical or electronics engineering, but the problem is you cannot get temporary visa with that kind of courses because these two courses, electronic and mechanical, it's in short demand. So these are the much more popular courses. There are other courses as well, but then it depends on what's your background. Based on that, we advise you. So if you have any questions as such, you can particularly speak with our education consultant as such, and based on your background, they will advise you possible courses as such.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for the very detailed insights. I'd just like to inform everyone, I can see everyone is raising their hands, but please be aware we're actually, picking and choosing some questions. And today's session is predominantly education focused. We're joined by two very elite education panelists, and our migration-based Q&A session will actually be taking place tomorrow. So if you have any specific questions with regards to, pursuing your PhD, studying in regional areas, want to know about the best sort of scholarships, courses, and programs, leave those education inquiries in the comments below. For now, I have two interesting questions about studying civil engineering. Yes, Deepa, you would like to say something?
There is one guest who would want to have their questions answered, and they've put their questions 3-4 times. So let's take that question.
Sure.
And it's also where you can give the education pathway to Saru, if you may. I am a prospective international student planning to take a master's degree in artificial intelligence in a regional area in the state of Victoria. Does studying a master's degree in AI have a pathway to permanent residency? What occupations in the skilled occupation list does AI fall under? Path, you can answer the PR path, and Saru can suggest courses in regional for this master's degree. First, Path, you can go ahead.
Could you please reiterate? Is that was Masters of Artificial Intelligence, and then
in artificial intelligence, the student would like to pursue that in regional area. So the question is, does the master's degree in AI, possibly IT specializing in AI, then has a pathway for PR? What occupation should they nominate under?
Okay, look, generally with this Masters of Artificial Intelligence, because a lot of time it also happens that your title, course title will be like Masters of Artificial Intelligence, or it can be Masters of Information Technology. But just with the course title, you cannot identify which occupations you can go for, because when you look at the Skills Assessment Authority, ACS, they says that we are going to look at what subjects you have completed, because title can be different. If you look at even different countries with the same title, they might have different subjects. Even over here in Australia, if you look at the same title, different university might have different course curriculum. So ACS, they go by subject. They will look at how many subjects you have studied, and that subjects are relevant to which occupation. Based on that, they will decide. But major applicants we have seen studying this kind of courses qualify under business analyst or system analyst role. So most likely, I don't know about the subjects which you're going to study, but most likely based on what students we have, what marks we have seen for the other students which we have submitted application for in past, we have applied for the skills assessment under business analyst, system analyst. But if you have studied any other subjects probably relevant to database, or with the data wrangling, data, something with the data, you can also look at the other occupations like database administrator, or there is another occupation called data scientist, which is not, as of now, there is no specific title of this occupation under the current occupation list, but department was saying that they are going to create a separate occupation title as such. But for now, they said that data scientist can fall under this occupation called information and professionals not elsewhere classified. So that occupation also you can target, but for that occupation, the assessment authority is VETASYS, which compulsory asks for 1 year of experience. With your professional year program, you cannot qualify for that skills assessment for now. In future, if they add data scientist occupation as such, and if you're going to if your subjects are relevant to that, you might have different assessing authority, different requirements. But most of the time, we have seen people apply under business analyst or system analyst because the subjects are comprised that way. It also happens that there are some core subjects and there are some electives. So core units, that means you have to do it no matter what. But when you look at electives, a lot of time people also select that electives towards some other IT occupation. For example, if you have total of 16 subjects and then you have 4 electives, if you are doing all that 4 electives in probably programming, you may also target programming occupation like analyst programmer, which is combined of programming and analyst role as such. So if you have analyst subjects and then programming subjects, you can also try for analyst programmer, so depends mainly on the subjects.
Saru, since you're also going to be talking about AI, there's someone who wants to know about master by research for AI. So while addressing it, if you could also let us know about masters by research for AI, that would be great.
Thank you, Riddhi. Now, just to answer the question that the course options available in regional areas. Now, for masters in artificial intelligence, so basically it all clubs down to IT, which is information technology. So the masters of IT right now, if you're looking at the regional options, the best option available is in CSU. Regional, which is Port Macquarie campus in New South Wales. They have a masters of IT and they have 12 specializations, pretty much covering every aspect of IT. So this is just the master's course, not the research program. But then the next intake available for this course is July intake, and they have a very lucrative scholarship available for this program. They are offering Destination Australia scholarship, and they still have seats available for this. Now, Destination Australia is basically an Australian government scholarship, and every regional university has few seats allocated every year for specified programs. So CSU still has some seats available for their Masters of IT in the Port Macquarie campus, which is a 12-unit program. So it becomes quite attractive. Now, to answer the question, now this I just looked at this question. The student wants to know the research option in Canberra for AI. Now, in Canberra, the University of Canberra has a research course which is in Masters of Information Systems, and within that program, you can do your specialization in AI. Now, depending on what your background is and what your research area is and your documentation, we can help assess your case looking at once we have your documents, because for research programs there we need specified documents, especially your research proposal or your thesis and some professional references. But yes, this program is available with University of Canberra.
Thank you, Saru. We actually have something similar from Dhanvi, who is an electronic and communication engineer, but she wants to do her postgraduate studies from Perth in Master of Renewable and Sustainable Energy. So she'd like to know about where she can study this program from. And also from the migration point of view, she wants to know what are the future prospects for her to get her PR.
Part, if you can take the migration prospects, I'm just having a look at the course options for the student.
Sorry, can you just tell me the study, what student have studied?
Right, I'll just repeat that. So the student has studied electronic and communications. He's completed his engineering, and now he's planning to do his postgraduate studies in Perth, and he wants to study the Master of Renewable and Sustainable Energy. His first cousin is a PR holder. So based on these studies, what is his future PR pathway?
Okay, so I think the student have studied electronics engineering from back home, probably from India, I guess. And if you wanted to study Masters of Renewable Sources in Western Australia, there is a good option as well, because through your engineering qualification, you can get a skills assessment. You don't have to have a study in Australia. You don't need any experience as such. You'll have to apply for a skills assessment through authority called Engineers Australia, and they ask for CDR reports, like the project reports. So you'll have to explain 3 project reports, 3 practical work, engineering work you have done during your qualification or after your qualification. So based on that, they will assess your engineering skills. And if you are meeting the requirements, they will offer you a positive skills assessment. Once you get the skills assessment, you can apply for 491 family sponsored visa, because you are saying you have a family who is permanent resident, considering that relative is living in regional Australia, that is outside of Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So if you have a relative up to first cousin living in regional Australia, you can possibly try for 491 family sponsorship. Even if you are outside of Australia, there is one option which you can try even before you complete your master's degree, or even if you are in Australia during your master's, you can apply for this program. If you get selected, you can apply for the visa. Otherwise, you can continue studying this course. If you do master's course in Western Australia generally says that if you study 2 years course in Western Australia, and if you have relevant engineering job in Western Australia, then Western Australia can sponsor you for 190 or 491 program, which is like state sponsorship. 190 is a straight away permanent residency. 491, it's a pathway to permanent residency. So you will have 2 options. When you are studying this course or before you even start your course, you can get a skills assessment and you can apply for 491 family sponsorship. During that, you continue your course, and if by the end of your course you don't hear anything for your 491 application, you look for relevant job in Western Australia. If you get any engineering job in Western Australia, then also you can apply for the Western Australia state nomination. Western Australia ask for at least 2 years of study in Western Australia and job in the relevant occupation. So before completing course also, you'll have option through 491 family sponsorship. If that does not work, you will have option of state sponsorship under 190 or 491.
For the course options for Masters of Renewable and Sustainable, it's available with Murdoch University in Western Australia. So this particular course is a 2 years duration with them, and they do need a bachelor's in a relevant field or some experience in a relevant field for the student to qualify. And also you should have studied physics in your high school. They want the student to understand the basic principles of physics for them to adapt to few units which are a part of this course.
Wonderful, Saru. There is a question, there's a lot of questions on PhD, so I was wondering if Tiani can answer a few questions on PhD. One question is that, can I qualify for PhD with a PT, English score? Can you shed some light on that?
So with most PhD, you're required to have a master's in research. So you have to have some research experience within that. So normally they require a thesis. I think it was around 80,000 words thesis before. So you have to have a master's in a research background. So you have to have that experience in how to, write a proposal. So what most university required is an expression of interest. You fill out that form and you submit that. And it has to be very well written and has to be quite strong. So when you're looking at your PTE, you need to have at least, equivalent of an R7, so PTE 65, to be considered for, Masters of Research. And if you don't, some universities will consider you for the Masters of Philosophy. And then maybe one after a year, and they can look at your research base and see how you're going on that. You may be able to transition to the PhD from there. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you, Tiani. There is one question which is a mix of student visa and TR, but I guess a lot of students have a similar scenario. I finished my study early. I finished my study early and have student visa till March 2021. I'll be getting graduation certificate after 1 month. How long should I wait to apply for TR? Can I use this extra time, or they may cancel anytime my student visa? This is one part of the question. If anyone would like to take that question. Can the student wait till March 2021? Or would you recommend them to apply for TR immediately?
2021 or 2022?
I think that's a typo, because at the end, can I use this extra time till March 2021 is the question, is what they put.
And when is the client completing the course?
In 1 month time. So that would be in July. So they have extra time on the student visa. So they're asking, can I utilize this time or should I have to apply for TR?
Okay, so look, what happens? There are two things. First thing is maintaining your visa condition, which is for your current visa, which is a student visa, and second thing is applying for a temporary visa. Now, breaching any visa condition cannot create any problem for your 485 visa because there is no condition as such that you must not have breached your visa condition to get your 485 visa. So no problem with that. But during your student visa, if department find out that you are not studying your course, there is a possibility that they can cancel the visa. But then how the process work is, when you complete a course, generally department says that you came here to do a course and you have completed that course. So if you have completed that course, department is looking at your application or looking at your visa conditions a bit leniently, so they don't generally try to cancel your visa. So standard requirement is, if you are on a student visa, you cannot stay on a student visa without studying a course. So if you're not studying a course, generally you are breaching your visa condition. But generally that is for the people who are not or who hasn't completed a course. If you complete your course, just when you look at a general situation, just an example, if I tell you that you are completing your course in the month of October or November, most of the time you might have seen, for you or probably your friends, their visa will be expiring next year March, and you have visa for around 4 or 5 months of time. Now if department know that you cannot stay on a student visa without studying a course, why they will give you visa until 15th of March? They are giving you that time to work on other things. So same way, if you look at, you are not generally breaching your visa condition because you have completed your course. And in case if department say that you haven't enrolled into you any other course, and it's been more than 2 months of time, you are still on a student visa, then they are going to send you a notice saying that we are intending to cancel your visa, so give us a response within 7 days of time. And if we are satisfied with your response, we won't cancel your visa. If we are not satisfied with that, we will cancel the visa, something like that. But it is required from the department side that they have to send you a notice. If they don't send you a notice, they cannot cancel your visa straight away. So most of the time people, what they do is, you probably wait on your student visa if you wanted to wait to have more time, because temporary visa you can apply within 6 months of your course completion. So if you're completing your course in July, first week, second week, generally that 6 months are considered from the date you complete your course. So if it is 10th of July you are completing your course, pretty much 9th 10th of January you are eligible for your temporary visa. So until that, if you wanted to wait, you can wait. If department really wanted to cancel your visa, they will come means they are going to email you sending a notice saying that you are breaching your visa condition, and respond us within 7 days. So most of the time people, in case if you get any notice, we haven't seen any cases as such, but in case if you get it within that 7 days, you can still apply for a temporary visa and tell them that I have applied for my temporary visa and I completed my course and I was just waiting for these documents or whatever it is. So that way also you can work out. So you are safer on both ways, so that way you can probably work on.
Thank you for that insights, Parth. There is a similar question, which is like, can it lead to PR? And they also want course suggestion as well. So you can first let the audience know whether it leads to PR, and then Saru can give the course suggestion. Is there any diploma or certificate specialized in networking that can lead to PR? I have work experience from overseas in the same field. So networking.
Okay, if it is networking, you are looking at two options. Networking is purely IT, but it has somehow relation with telecom engineer as well, or telecommunication related occupations as well, because we have seen some courses which are called as diploma of telecommunication engineering, but it has IT components. Same way, there are some courses which are diploma of IT, information technology networking, but it also have a telecom subjects. And we have also seen some schools, if you have studied diploma of IT, they give you credit transfer into diploma of telecom engineering, considering that are telecom related subjects. So it's interrelated anyway. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you are saying what are my pathways, so you can either look at IT related occupations. So for IT related occupations relevant to networking, there are three occupations: computer network and system engineer, which is in high demand; network administrator, which is in low demand, short term skilled occupation list; and network analyst. This network administrator and network analyst are in short term skilled occupation list, that means low demand. Other than that, you can probably look at some other administrator role like system administrator, or if you have done some security related because network security are again closely relevant occupations. So if you have done also security related duties in your experience, you can probably also look at security specialist occupation. These are relevant to IT, and that all occupations are assessed by authority called Aussizz Computer Society. For Aussizz Computer Society, they says if you have done a diploma relevant qualification relevant to IT networking, you will need 5 years of experience to get a skills assessment. That 5 years of experience can be before qualification, during qualification, or after qualification. So if you are saying I got some experience back home, that is 5 years, and you are applying to do diploma of IT over here, you can apply for skills assessment into IT occupations from that occupation, from that qualification and experience. First option. And once you get a skills assessment, you can look at options accordingly, the state sponsorship or the 189 independent visa or the employer sponsored, whatever it is. Second option you can look at is there are some course providers I have seen that if you do diploma of IT and they also have a diploma of telecom, which is a common course, or it can be interrelated course. So if you have studied diploma of IT, if it is the same course for diploma of telecom, there is another authority called Engineers Australia. They do assessment for telecommunication technologists, telecommunication field engineer, network planner, as such, 3 occupations. They do assessment for that. They says they want advanced diploma level qualification in telecommunication engineering. So if you have done that IT qualification, I have seen that lot of colleges have a common qualification for IT and telecom, or it's somehow interrelated. So you might have to do some extra few subjects and you can still get another qualification into advanced diploma of telecom engineering. So with that, you can get a skills assessment in telecommunication technologist or a field planner, something like that. The good thing with that occupations is that that occupations does not require any experience. So if you say that I don't have 5 years of experience, you cannot get skills assessment through that IT occupation, but then through this way you can apply for skills assessment. So depending on your experience, you can target the occupation.
Hi, just to address the course options available. Now, I'll start off with the occupations in IT, which Parth discussed first. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Parth, but then for IT occupations, the student needs to have a bachelor's or a higher qualification in order to get your skill assessment from ACS. So the courses available in networking, yes, we do have bachelor's of IT with specializations in networking or even cybersecurity, and also master's courses in IT is available with the specializations in networking, and pretty much available throughout Australia with almost all the universities. And also there are some private providers who do offer this course with attractive scholarships. Now, coming to the second part of telecommunications. In telecommunications, as Parth advised that from Engineers Australia, you need to do the advanced diploma. So there's a 2 year course, advanced diploma of telecommunications network engineering, which is available, and it gets your skill assessment from Engineers Australia with the relevant occupations. And this course has a very attractive package promotion going on right now. If you're looking to study in Melbourne, this course is available in 13,000. So originally, this course is actually 20,000, but then they're running a very good promotion right now. The 2 years program is available for 13,000, and you can start the course by paying a deposit of $1,500, and the rest is a monthly installment plan for you. And also with this course, when you're looking at attendance or assessment wise, this course is pretty easy going. There's not a lot of practical component involved. So it's mainly your assignments based, and there are no exams at the end. So it's just a normal assignment based, and you have 1 to 2 day classes in the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Saru. There is a question about student visa that I think Tiani can answer that if she can. My current student visa is expiring on September 9th, but my course is going to finish in October 23rd. I need to extend my visa. Could you please guide me through the process? And when is the best time to extend my student visa? So the student visa is expiring September 9th, but the course is prolonging, and it's finishing October 23rd.
Of the same year. So it's just a matter, it's just a few months. So actually at the end of your course, you do have 28 days to, either get a COE to start another program to extend your visa with a new program, a new COE. With that in shorter time, that should be fine because you have about 28 days of when your visa, when it expires, to get a new COE and start a new course or change to a new visa type. So it depends what you're doing. If you're going to upgrade, you can then apply for a COE for another program, and then you can extend your visa then. But within that short time, a lot of institutions won't give you a COE extension because it's only a couple of weeks. You have 28 days, and that should be sufficient for you to finish up your course.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Tiani, for that answer. I will get a few more questions on. Here's an interesting question. Have you had a case that a student wants to actually move their studies to Canada, planning to actually take my halfway bachelor and finish it in Canada? Pat, do you want to answer that question in a way where I guess students at the moment are sussing out options between Australia and Canada? What would you suggest for someone like that?
Okay, so look, generally we have seen students coming from other countries to Australia, and I think there must be a program for Canada or any other country as well, which is known as foreign interchange program, something like that. So even over here in Australia, Australia is offering that program where we have seen a lot of students. They have studied 1 year or 1.5 year, or even like, for example, RMIT, they have campus in Vietnam. We have seen a lot of time that students study first year, probably a diploma of IT there, and then they continue doing a bachelor's of IT over here. They get a credit transfer for that 1 year of study here. So if it is you are looking at, I'm not sure whether any Australian university have campus in Canada as well. If it is, if you are saying that way, that is one possible option. If they don't have any campus as such, because if it is from the same university, it's a bit easier to get a credit transfer because it's the same course itself. But if it is a different university, you can probably do that, because we have seen similar way. It can be if you are completing 1 year course back home and then coming here to do another 2 years of study, or it happens a lot of time that student have studied a diploma qualification back home and then they come here to do a bachelor's degree. They also get a credit transfer from that previous study, even if it is completed, not completed, depending on the universities. So that way you can possibly do. The student visa process generally remains pretty much similar. If you are looking at, suppose the uni has given you credit transfer for 1 year, if you're going to do 2 years course, then you can get visa for that 2 years so that you can complete your course. So pretty much same way, I think Canada should have that option as well. But that is, because generally I know that every country, generally the logic behind the process, the visa process is much more similar. So they must have the same thing there. But about the admission process, we have offshore team which looks into that candidate admission process. So if you are still having any query as such, just contact us through the details provided over here, and then we'll pass on your inquiry to the respective team offshore. So they will probably advise you better in that case.
I want to say, guys, we do admissions for Canadian institutions as well. And so I will be dropping my number here where you can get in touch with me for that. There is one interesting question, education migration related. I've done my Master of Engineering, Automotive Product Development, Deakin University, Geelong. So student has already studied in a regional area. I am back to India. Now I have 10 years experience as automotive lead design engineer. Right now my score is 75 points. I need to know if there is a course, preferably 1 year course, which supports my master's course and work experience and help me boost my scores for PR. So I guess if the student wants to boost the points for PR, a Master's of Research or PhD would be a good option. What would you suggest, Saru or Tiani, anyone who want to take this question?
I'll probably recommend the Masters of Philosophy. It is 2 years. All the Masters, all the research HDR programs are 2 years in duration. But he certainly has, if the entry requirement is a GPA of a credit average, and the Masters of Philosophy doesn't require work experience, whereas the PhD would require you to have a research base in your Masters. So maybe the Masters of Philosophy would be the one to go for.
Yes. All right.
Look, in that case, I wanted to add a few things. If you are saying that you wanted to increase your points, then I think if you're looking at increasing points, if you do a 2 years course in Australia, then only you get 5 more points for studying in Australia for 2 years and staying in Australia for 2 years. If you study the same course in regional Australia and if you stay in regional area during that course, you can get another 5 points. So you get 5 points for studying in Australia, 5 points for studying in regional area specifically. So 10 points you can get that way. I'm not sure because you are saying that you have studied in Australia earlier as well. If you have already claimed that points, if you study another 4 years, 10 years as such, you are not going to get any extra points. So if you already claim the points for studying undergrad degree, if it is in regional area, whatever points you got 15 for degree, 5 points for studying in Australia, 5 points for regional area, you cannot get that again if you are going to do another 1 year, 2 year masters as such. Another thing is if you are saying you wanted to do a master's degree in research or a PhD degree, you can get another points. PhD, because it's a high level qualification, you get another points. But if you are looking at master's degree, if generally you do bachelor's degree in, or master's degree in Australia, that's considered as getting the same points. But if you do a master's degree by research in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, STEM, it's known as, if you do that study in Australia, you can get another 10 points for studying a research degree in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. So if you're looking at something like that, when Tiani was saying that if you can do masters of philosophy, so that is again a research qualification. If it is 2 years qualification, you can get another 10 points. If you haven't claimed points for previous study, another 5 points for studying in Australia, another 5 you can get if you study the same course in regional area. So you can get 20 more points for studying this master's degree by research if you haven't claimed any points earlier, or for any new students as well, if they are here to do a master's by coursework course, if you wanted to switch to master's by research, this way it can also benefit you. So 20 points, it's much more higher points. Or if you compare with a normal master's course, you can still get 10 more points, or studying in regional another 5, so 15 more points you can get that way. So that way you can probably have much more higher points, and you don't have to compete with other students as such.
Right. I would just like to add here that there are certain universities like Macquarie who would accept you for a Master's of Research, but without any specific need for a thesis, as long as you have work experience too. So there are a lot of options available here. So I would encourage this guest to write to us for a personalized consultation. Um,
Before we move on to our next question, I know this session has actually run long. So if our panelists, if any of them would like to leave, please do let us know. But if you want to carry on answering questions, do let me know as well. Tiani, Saru, Parth, are you okay to carry on still, or would you like to exit the session?
I think I have to take my exit at the moment. That's
Sure.
okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you,
Thank you
everybody.
so much, Tiani, for sharing your inputs with us and for joining our elite panel. We look forward to having you in our sessions tomorrow as well. So, guys, if you missed out on interacting with Tiani today, don't worry, you can join her sessions tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. There is a question here from Hassan, the guest. Uh, my visa got refused last year. In the meantime, I've done Bachelor of Civil Engineering Technology. I've done also associate degree in civil before. I want to move to a different state. I have option to Tasmania in Cert 4 in construction management, or Western Australia, Masters in construction management. I have a relative in Western Australia. What should I choose? So the student is asking, has a civil engineering background, um, wants to understand, is the master's in construction management a better one, or a cert 4 in construction management a better one, considering that the student has civil engineering background. There is a visa refusal, but I understand that the student may be on an AT appeal at the moment. But can we suggest a course based on the student's profile, as well as which is better for PR?
Yeah, sure. So, Hassan, actually, as I think you are already aware of the requirements in Tasmania and Western Australia both, and that's where I think you are talking about studying that right courses as such, because Tasmania, I think you are already aware that they are saying that if you study there for 1 year, and they have a priority list as such, and that's where they have provided occupation. They have said that if you study a course which is in that priority sector, then they can probably consider you under the 491 program, and that's construction management option is, I think, under that occupation list, and that's where you are planning to study that course. So if you are saying that you wanted to look at that 1 year study and getting 491, that is one good option as such. At the same time, if you are saying that I am looking at 190 option, because through studying that 1 year course in Tasmania, they will not offer you 190 visa. They can only offer you a 491 state nomination, which is a longer pathway to permanent residency. So first option you can have is, if you study in Tasmania that 1 year course, you can have a skills. I think you will have a skills assessment under civil engineer and also under civil draft person as civil engineering technician as such, or the draft person as such. So you can apply for Tasmania 491 state nomination. Along with that, when you are studying that course, if you are saying you have a relative in Western Australia who is PR or citizen, in case up to first cousin, if you are related by, then you can also look at 491 state nomination. And third option is, if you are saying that you are looking at only 190 program, then you relocate to Western Australia. But then for Western Australia 190 program, they says you have to complete 2 years study. That means you cannot qualify before you complete 2 years study, and you are also required to get a job offer in the same occupation in Western Australia. Then only you can qualify for the program. That means 2 years plus a job offer. If you think you don't wanted to wait for 2 years, or if you think that there are chances of getting a job are much more lesser, then Tasmania is a better option comparatively, because chances of changing the requirements in Tasmania are lesser. Secondly, you will only qualify after 1 year of time. So chances of changing the requirement after 1 year are also lesser compared to 2 years of time. So that way it's better to stick with Tasmania. Also, we have also seen that under the civil engineering draft person occupation, New South Wales has invited people with even 65. So under this occupation, New South Wales has sponsored recently people with 65 points. For that, New South Wales says that you are required to be living in our state, and applicant with high points will be selected first. So if you relocate to New South Wales, 65 points, it's not that much higher points, and they have nominated people because they don't have that many people qualified under that occupation, because not many people have done that advanced diploma or associate study in this occupation. So that is one good thing. The problem is New South Wales program for this financial year is already closed. So we'll have to wait for July and see it will have the same requirements or what, and how many occupations they will be sponsoring, because recently they were only sponsoring under limited occupations and they were having a much more higher quota. So then they also invited people with much more lesser points under this kind of occupation. But in July, if their occupation list has much more higher occupations, then competition will be much more higher, because they have to nominate people under all of that occupations. So depends on that, but that was also a good option. Otherwise, if you wanted to stick with Western Australia, 2 years after 190, 1 year after Tasmania, they can offer you 491. So you decide program accordingly.
Thank you, Parth, for that detailed consultation for that student. Obviously, there is one question where they've highlighted the guest wants their questions to be answered. So my name is Hani Patel. I've been studying Masters in Business Information Systems in Torrens University, Adelaide. I've been working in aged care as a hospitality catering assistant for the last 2 years. Is there any chance for PR? What type of jobs can I do as business analyst or any other in the aged care after finishing my study and professional year? So just to sum it up, Masters in Business Information System, Torrens University, working in aged care as a hospitality catering assistant, but wants to know what sort of jobs would lead to PR.
Okay, so look, in that case, what happens for South Australia, I think you might be aware of the requirements for business, because you can apply for skills assessment under either a business analyst or system analyst role based on your master's. I'm not sure about your bachelor's degree, so I'm not commenting on that thing. But then based on your master's, you are targeting occupation either the business analyst or system analyst occupation. Now, if you look at these two occupations, if you look at South Australia's requirements for 190 state nomination, they ask for at least 6 months of experience in the relevant occupation in South Australia. So if you get a job as a business analyst or system analyst, that they may be able to sponsor you. Otherwise, they says that if you're working in aged care, if you're living in South Australia for 3 years of time, they can still nominate you under the program called 491. So now what you'll have to do is you complete your master's degree, then you start your professional year program, or you start with your, if you get a job in IT, you look for IT job. If you get a job 1 year, you work in that occupation, you can get a skills assessment. Once you get a skills assessment, then you see what are the requirements for South Australia for your occupation. So if, for example, you have got a skills assessment through IT experience, then most likely you will meet the 190 state nomination requirement, because they says if you work for, if you have worked for 6 months and if you have studied in South Australia, they can offer you for 190 state nomination. So you have worked for 1 year, with that you got a skills assessment, and it is more than 6 months of experience in South Australia, so you qualify for the 190 program that way. Consider that you haven't got a job in IT, you'll have to do professional year program to get a skills assessment. So you got a skills assessment. After 1 year, during this 1 year, you continued working in the aged care facility, for example. They says that if you have stayed in South Australia for 3 years and if you have worked in any occupation as such, they can still offer you state nomination under the 491 pathway. So that could be another option. And another third option is if you say that I am not getting even this job, if you relocate to outer regional area that is outside of Adelaide, you stay there for 12 months and work for 12 months, they can still nominate you for the program. So these are the options pretty much you can look at. In aged care, proving that there is a requirement of business analyst could be very tricky unless they really have a requirement of IT specialist. Like suppose we have seen a lot of aged cares, they still require network support. They also develop their websites or applications as such. If you are saying that you are working as a analyst there in that business, communicating with the programmers or the network engineers, providing them the requirements and gathering requirements from the other providers, stakeholders as such, passing the requirements to them. That way, if you're saying you are working in that role, that way you can still get a skills assessment after 1 year. But then I'm not sure whether your business will have a requirement of such. So I cannot comment on that. Otherwise, you will have to do a professional year program to get a skills assessment.
Right. Okay. I think I have a question for Atiya, where she's been asking this question time and again. Does PhD in any subject lead to PR? What are requirements if you want PR through PhD?
So if you are looking at options through PhD, in a way you can say that yes, any PhD can lead to PR. In a way you can say no, it's not like that as well. So it depends on where you are studying the course. That's very important, because some states, for example, Victoria, they says that as long as you have a skills assessment in any one of the occupation which is on the department's occupation list. So department have more than 500 occupations on the list. So Victoria says if you have done PhD in Victoria and if you have a skills assessment under any of the occupation, not specifically through your PhD, but you got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, through that you got a skills assessment, still you qualify for the program. So if you are saying any PhD, yes, in the case of Victoria. If you are saying that, okay, I am not in Victoria, I am in some other state, again, depends on which state, because New South Wales, if you look at, they says if you do PhD or masters or bachelors, we don't care. They don't give any preference to people who are studying there in specifically Sydney. If it is in regional area, they have a 491 program where they says any PhD degree, if you have a skills assessment relevant to that PhD, we can still sponsor you. That is under the 491 program through, not 190. Victoria offer you 190 state nomination. Tasmania, if you study there 2 years PhD, they will offer you 190 state nomination, considering you have a skills assessment. Canberra, pretty much similar way, they can offer you 190 state nomination. Queensland, they ask for a job in the relevant field, they can also give you exemption. So for Queensland, you can also say if you have done PhD, you can get a option. But for all these options to work, you need a skills assessment. If you say for my bachelor's, I don't have a skills assessment, through my master's also, I don't have a skills assessment, then you cannot qualify for even through even PhD if you don't have a skills assessment. Second program which you can look at is Global Talent Independent Program. For that, skills assessment is not mandatory. So if you say I don't have a bachelor's degree, my bachelor's degree cannot give me a skills assessment, or any other qualification or experience cannot give you a skills assessment, you can probably look at Global Talent Independent Program. Now in Global Talent Independent Program, that program is only available to certain targeted sectors. So if you ask me that, okay, any sector, again, no in this category, because they have a specific targeted sector. So They have a digital sector, agricultural technology, finance technology, or mining, manufacturing, engineering. So they have a specific targeted sector. If your PhD is in any of that one of the targeted sector, then you can still qualify for the program. You don't need a skills assessment. You don't need high points. You don't need high English as such. So straight away you can qualify for the program. So depends on where you're applying to study and which stream you are looking at. If you're targeting the stream which is part of that global talent independent program, that can help you in both ways, under the global talent program and through the state sponsored visa program as well.
Right. Thank you so much for the info part. There is this guest who's been waiting to get her questions answered. So we'll take that question. I have studied Masters of Construction Project Management in Victoria and done with 90 points, including PT and NATI. And my student visa is expiring August 2021. When is the better time to apply for 189 visa? Any other good options? My occupation is quantity surveyor from 𝐴𝐼QS. So at the moment, for quantity survey, she's at 90 points. What can we suggest further in terms of PR options?
Okay, for quantity surveyors, that means you must have done bachelor's in civil engineering. So you can also try and get a skills assessment under civil engineer, because civil engineer is added under priority migration skilled occupation list. So the chances of getting invitation in that occupation might be higher for sure, because that occupations are given priority by the department. So in upcoming year from July onwards, you may see that 189 invitations may come up under the civil engineer category. It may not come under quantity survey, so that way it can help you. That's the first thing. Secondly, if like for this year they haven't selected quantity surveyors under the 189 program, if next year also if they don't invite anyone under quantity surveyors, no matter what you have 90-95 points, you will not be selected if they are choosing applicants based on the occupation.
But
um,
Zeel says that she's completed Bachelor of Architecture, not civil
okay.
engineer.
Okay, so in that case, I would say you stick with quantity surveyor for now. So first thing is applying for 189. Now there is no time frame on when to apply for 189. There is no right time as such. As soon as you are qualified, as soon as you are eligible, you should apply for the program, because when you apply for 189, department look at two things: the points which you have, and secondly what date you are applying for your 189 EUI expression of interest. Based on these two things, they invite people. A lot of time people ask us that, okay, is it like new financial year they are starting the program, so we should only apply on 1st of July or close to July? Nothing as such. As soon as you are eligible, you should apply, because if you don't apply and someone else is applying with similar points as you, then department will see who has applied for the application first. That means if other person has applied with 90, you are also applying with 90, but that person applied before you, that person will be selected before you. So if there is any chance that department is going to invite quantity surveyors under 189 visa in this year, not coming financial year, there is a possibility that you can get selected. Quantity surveys generally does not have more than 90 points. Most of the time people not have even more than 85 points. So if you have 90 points, as long as department starts selecting quantity surveys, there are good chances that you will be selected. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'm not sure which state you are living in, but you'll have to see whether the state where you are living, you can qualify for that state program or not. If not, you can also move to some other state which is offering sponsorship to that kind of occupations. Most likely, if you target New South Wales, they generally sponsor quantity surveyors. So you can target that state. You can anything other than Victoria and Western Australia, you can target. Otherwise, for Victoria, if you are getting job in regional Victoria, they can still offer you state nomination under the 491 pathway, which is like longer pathway, regional visa leading to PR. That option also you can look at. So depending on where you are living, what kind of job you are doing, if you are saying I am living in Melbourne, I don't wanted to go to any other state, and I have experience as such, you can also request your employer and see if they wanted to sponsor you, where you don't have to relocate anywhere and you can continue working over here. That can also lead to permanent residency. If you have 3 years of experience in that occupation, quantity surveyor, your employer can sponsor you for 186 visa under direct entry, which is straight away PR. If you don't have 3 years of experience, 2 years of experience if you have, you can apply for 482 visa, which can lead to permanent residency. If you don't have even 2 years of experience, whatever visa you are as of now on, you keep working in that occupation and see if your employer can sponsor you after you complete that 2 years of experience. So in that case, you still don't have to relocate anywhere else. If not, If you're saying my employer is not happy to sponsor me, you have two choices. You either move to some other state which sponsor people, or you look for another employer which is happy to sponsor you. So pretty much these are the options you can look at.
Thank you, Parth. There is a student visa related question. Saru, if you can take that. My name is Imran. I've been studying Masters in Business Analytics from Victoria University. But due to borders being closed, I'm doing my studies from India. How can I apply for an exemption to travel to Australia? So at least I can complete my last semester in Australia. Will the borders open by July 2022? Uh, So obviously here the student is asking for an exemption per se, but there is, as we all know that because Australia is uh, heavily under lockdown, multiple states are under lockdown, especially New South Wales as well as Western Australia too. Many plans by the universities unfortunately have failed to bring the students, right? So what would you suggest for the student to keep doing so that they can be considered a priority?
See, currently, as Eva mentioned, that with the current state and the current situation of COVID, we are not looking at borders closing anytime soon. And with your current course, our advice would be to continue studying that course. Now, if you're looking at, coming to Australia to do your last semester, possibly you can ask for a leave of absence for the next semester. Where on the basis of current situation or your personal situation, you can always request for a leave of absence. So if you're looking at July intake, you can request the university to grant you a leave of absence. So that will at least stretch your time and you may still have a possibility to come back and do your last semester. Now, it depends how many semesters are remaining, but then with the current situation, because every student is also asking for a leave of absence, so some universities are not giving deferment approval for more than 2 semesters. But then you can always ask for a reduced study load in that case. So if your university rejects the application for leave of absence, you can take a reduced study load. So instead of taking 4 units, maybe you can study 2 units or even one unit. We have seen number of students who have got these approvals. So that will help you to stretch your time, and you may not have to take another course, in order to apply for your TR.
Right. And Imran, a word of advice is that when the borders open, the students who are currently studying will get priority, right? So even though it is difficult to study from your home country, please make sure that you maintain enrollment by studying at least a minimum of 1 or 2 subjects, because if your COE is inactive because you've deferred, then you may not be on priority compared to a student who's holding an active COE and studying. And at the same time, while many pilot programs by the Victorian government as well as New South Wales governments have failed to take off to bring international students, uh, so a date to say when the border will open or when students will be brought to Australia in batches is uncertain. So we can't comment on that at the moment. Thank you for your question, though. We
Just before that, Deepa, there was a girl named Honey. I just answered her question. She's also continuing her question saying, I have heard that only aged carer can get invitation in 491, not the hospitality catering assistant. I have been working in this aged care from last 2 years. Is it okay? So that's correct. That South Australia says that if you are working in a skilled occupation, which is skill level 1, 2, or 3, in that, if you are doing that hospitality catering related work, that is not generally considered. But if you are working as a cook, if you prove that you are doing that duties, or now onwards, if they are going to promote you, and if you are saying you are going to work as a cook or chef in that business, that is one way where you can prove that you have worked in a skilled occupation, skill level 1, 2, or 3. Or you are required to prove that you have worked as a carers, like a aged care assistant, aged care personal care assistant as such. In that case, they can nominate you. So in that case, you can also do, there are some certificate 3 level courses in aged care. So that kind of courses you can do if you haven't studied that courses, and see if your current employer can move you into that kind of positions, so that you can still meet the requirement. So by that time you complete your PY, you still can meet the requirement this way.
Great. Thank you, Parth. There's an interesting question here from Dimitri. He's saying, I love everything about India because my grandfather was Indian. Thank you, Dimitri. We love you too. My question is there a PR pathway for me with 10 years plus of overseas experience in supply chain? I'm going to study 2 year MBA in Australia or studying Master of IT without experience. So he's basically a supply chain professional with 10 years of experience. Want to know studying an MBA or a Master of IT, what would be a good option for PR?
Dimitri, if you're looking for pathways through supply chain or logistics, there's an occupation called supply and distribution manager. The occupation is assessed by much more higher senior assessing authority, which do senior management roles. And for that, they says that they require at least 3 years of experience working at a managerial level. So you must be working as a manager, supply distribution manager, and under you there must be 3 subordinate managers working under you, and below each of that subordinate managers there must be another 3 managers working under them. If you think your position was kind of that, then only you can get a skills assessment relevant to supply chain. That is the only occupation which is on the department's list. And if you cannot get skills assessment under that occupation, you don't have any permanent residency options through that occupation, unless you find a job in the same occupation in Australia, and if that employer says they wanted to sponsor you, because for employer sponsored visa it's not mandatory to have a skills assessment. So if you find a job as such over here, then you don't need to have a skills assessment. You can qualify for the program. You already have more than 2 years, which is the basic requirement to apply for the employer sponsored visa. Otherwise, you need a skills assessment. And for that, if you don't have that kind of position, at least 3 managers working under you, under each of that 3 managers, another 3 managers working under them. If that kind of position is not available, then you probably look at studying some other course. If you think finding another employer who can sponsor you is not possible, then it's better to study IT course if you're looking at that course and not any other course. Through Masters of IT, it's not mandatory to have experience, but you will need a professional year program, which is kind of equivalent to 1 year of experience to get a skills assessment. But you also see where to study this kind of courses, because Victoria, if you study, or big states like New South Wales, if you study, you'll have much more tougher competition, and it would be a bit tricky, because I think when you are saying you have 10+ years of experience, you might be also losing points for your age, and that's where studying in Victoria or New South Wales could be tricky. So it's better to study in regional areas. In New South Wales also, if you wanted to study, I would say better to study in regional area other than Sydney. Newcastle, Wollongong, they have universities there. If you do Masters of IT there, they can probably sponsor you, because New South Wales says if you study 2 years in regional area, we can sponsor you. So that way it can work out. Or if you study in some other states like Northern Territory, Canberra, Tasmania, South Australia, these 4 states I would strongly recommend you to study in, because they can sponsor you even if you don't have relevant job in that state. Just studying there and working probably for a few months, you can still qualify for the program. So that way, I think it's like, it was very similar to the girl I was explaining, Honey. So if it is for South Australia, the same way, Northern Territory, Canberra and Tasmania, they offer sponsorship very easily if you study 2 years there. So I think if you are looking at Masters of IT, I would strongly recommend studying that course there. You can study here as well, but then you will have to either look at employer sponsored visa, finding a job in the relevant field, or scoring higher points. Higher points might be a bit tricky for you, as I say. So that way it's better to relocate and study somewhere else.
Thank you so much, Parth, for the detailed answer. I've just dropped Parth's email address and phone number, as well as 𝐬𝐻𝐬𝐬's contact details too, for you guys to get back to them for any personal advice or consultation that you may seek, as we are running out of time and we have a lot of questions. So please use the contact details provided in the comment box to get in touch with them, and they would get back to you. Having said that, we'll take one final question. Do you want to answer this part? I am from Sri Lanka, working as a software engineer, have 90 points for 491, 80 points for 190. Have positive skill assessment from ACS. What are our chances for PR 2021-2022? When will offshore open? Which state will have more chances? So software engineer, 90 points for 491 and 80 points for 190.
Before
I
you
mean,
answer your question, Parth, I'd just like to inform everyone. We know we've not been able to answer everyone's questions today, but do check out our Search My Answer website. I've left the link in the chat box. You can get some insights about where you're eligible, what the other states hold for you, where you're most likely to get your PR. So do check that out. And in the meantime, if your question's already been answered, I've left a review link in the comment section. You can start reviewing us and just give us a little bit of feedback on how you found the session. Thank you so much, Parth. I'll let you take over and carry on.
Yeah, sure. So Chaminda, if you are looking at 491 or 190 option from offshore. Most of the states, they don't consider offshore people under IT occupations without a job offer. So consider that 190 will be much more difficult for you. Your target should be 491. If you have a family, that is one possible option where family member can be able to maybe able to sponsor you. And the 491 state sponsorship, if you're looking at New South Wales, generally they sponsor people a bit easily without a job offer. They ask for 5 years of experience, which I think you already have. So you can target New South Wales, but then the program for now is closed. So you'll have to wait for July. Same way, you can also target South Australia and Northern Territory because they generally don't ask for a job offer. Apart from that, most of the other states ask for a job offer. Without that, they will not be able to sponsor you. So your target will be New South Wales for 491, for South Australia for 491, and Northern Territory for 491. These are the three states which you should target. You should also try to look for job in the relevant field. If you get a job in relevant field, that state you can also try and see whether they can sponsor you. Otherwise, see if you are getting a job, ask your employer and see if they can sponsor you as well. That could be another option.
Great. Thank you, Parth. There is a guest, Hajif. He's repeated his question 5, 6 times. We will take this question now. I'm on student visa. I will finish my study soon, but I have my business in Victoria. I'll buy a business in NSW. I want to apply business visa. So what is the process? We have an entrepreneur here. They're running the business in Victoria and may have business interest in NSW too. So the process for business visa is the question.
Okay, so Hazib, it depends on what kind of business you are doing. I have my business in Victoria. Okay, so I'm not sure what kind of business you have, but then if you have a business, there are some in the business visa. Actually, there are mainly two streams you are targeting. The first stream is called business innovation stream, where if you are saying that you have a business and that business have turnover of for this financial year, which is completing tomorrow, for this financial year, the turnover requirement from the business is at least $500,000. So department says you must have at least 2 years of experience owning and managing the business, and that business must have got turnover of at least $500,000. Um, and that turnover is increasing from 1st of July to $750,000. So you have to prove that in last 4 years of time, any 2 years, the business turnover is $750,000. And if you have that, and if you're saying I wanted to open another business in some other state, in that state you will have to apply for the state nomination expression of interest. You will have to see how many points you have, because every different state have a different points requirement as well. Minimum requirement is 65 points, but some state says we need 75, 80 points as such. So depending on the state, there is a separate points calculator for the business stream. So you'll have to meet that points requirement and see if that state is really interested in sponsoring you. That's the first requirement of having at least 750,000 of business turnover for 2 years in any 4 years. Secondly, you are required to have assets, your personal and business assets of at least 1.25 million to what I remember. That's implementing from 1st of July. For now, it was $800,000. If you have this, then you can qualify for the business innovation program, where you have to start a business, run it for two years of time at least, and then you can probably look at permanent residency. The second option, and these requirements, they are also increasing to 3 years from 1st of July. So instead of 2 years, 3 years, you'll have to run a business. If you don't have that turnover, you cannot look at that business innovation pathway. Second option you have is through investment. Investment for the current financial year, the minimum investment was 1.5 million in Australian government bonds, but that they are changing to minimum of 2.5 million investment, which can be in multiple, there are multiple options where you can invest, but then minimum investment requirement is 2.5 million. So if you think you have that much of assets, which you can prove that you have that much of assets and you wanted to invest into that specific things, then you can look at that investment option. So these are the mainly two options. For both of these options, you will have to apply to the state government where you wanted to open a business on a business, and if that state wanted to nominate you, then you can apply for the visa as such. So that's the basic requirements. About exact requirements, if you wanted to analyze, check, or whether you wanted to see whether you are meeting, your business is meeting the requirements for this process, you can contact us at our any of our office, or you can, if you wanted to contact me personally, you can contact me at parth.patel@aussizgroup.com.
I've shared Parth's email address and phone number as well as 𝐬𝐻𝐬𝐬's email address and phone number. Do get in touch with him. This is our last question. We're sorry for other questions that are not answered, but we do have your name and number. We will contact you in the coming weeks for a personal consultation. So don't be disappointed, guys. Having said that, tomorrow there is also a Q&A session. That's 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Australian Standard Time, where there are a panel of migration agents who are going to be present, and that session is specific to migration, and you have another chance to get your questions answered too. But having said that, no question is left unanswered at Aussizz. We will get back to you with for a personal consultation for all of these questions. Right. So the last question for the day is from Gonzalo. I'm working as a chef, but my wages are casual cook. Wages level 2. Can I get positive chef skill assessment? So I think many students go through the scenario working as a chef, but wages are as casual cook wage. Can I get a positive chef skill assessment as a question?
So what I was saying is the requirement for the wages is that it must be at least at a level or minimum wages decided by the Fair Work Commission, or if it is any industry standards apply, then that wages must be equivalent to that industry standards. But we have seen that if your wage is equivalent to even cook, if it is more than $20 in a way, if you can consider, then also department consider that experience as such. So I don't think there should be any problem as long as your wage was at least $20 on hourly basis. If it is more, not a problem. If it is less, then you may not be able to meet the requirement of chef, because that's the minimum fair work wage for this year is, I think from 1st of July, it's increasing to 20.33. For the current year, I think it's 19.84. As long as you have at least that much of pay rate, we haven't seen any problem as such, because different employers have a different understanding, different way of paying. But then that's the minimum fair work payment. There is another industry awards as such, where they also define that for chef they have to pay you $25 as such. But we have seen department is not raising any concern as such, because if business have any contracts, like when you signed a contract, if they mention about that industrial agreement as such, then they have to pay you as per that market. Otherwise, we have seen that that department is not raising any concern in that regards. So as long as it's more than $20, I don't think there's any problem as such.
Thank you, Parth, and thank you, Saru, for um, going through those questions in detail and really giving advice as specific to the cases as possible. But we encourage you to get in touch with us. As I said, no questions are unanswered in Aussizz group. So I've dropped Saru and Parth's numbers as well. You can get in touch with them. Or we have an FAQ session tomorrow, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Australian time. That's the forum for you to get your questions answered too. And we have 3 migration agents who are going to be present. Otherwise, we do have your details, and we'll be getting back to you in the coming weeks for a personal consultation. Thank you so much. Please leave your session reviews, your suggestions, recommendations, feedback is very important to us for us to improve. And any positive appreciation from you will also help us. So thank you so much. Please leave your reviews. Thank you.